So common sense in this world and nowadays isn't so much of a common thing. It tends to be getting lost, and nowadays basic procedures and basic tasks that people do in their everyday lives are somewhat overlooked now with all the modern enhancements of technology. We kind of forget about the simple things and the simple way of life and how we used to do things. So looking at that, when my quote is, when the going gets tough, the smart get lost. Digging a little bit deeper into that, what a lot of folks do is there's really three main reactions that folks have: either a fight response, a flight response, or they freeze and do nothing at all. So starting off with that fight response, that's just basically when a type of person where when they're backed against the wall, they actively pursue a way to solve the problem and get out of that problem. And you can take that literally in a way where they'll literally fight their way out of the situation and swing if they have to. They will look at the situation and grab the bull by the horns and figure a way to get out of it. The next type of person is a person that is a flight response. That typically tends to be the most common you see nowadays, where the person will just doesn't know how to necessarily confront the situation, they'll just run. And that's a perfectly normal situation, and looking at it from an evolutionary standpoint, it's a way to protect yourself. Going into the third one, freeze. That can potentially be the most dangerous type of situation you can have, where you don't fight and you don't run. You just stand there and you're just so gripped with fear that there's nothing you can do, and you lose control over your own body, where you can't really do anything. In my personal experience, in the way I grew up in a military family, I was always taught to have a fight response and be actively have that mentality. It's definitely something that I feel is you learn throughout your impressionable years when you're younger. It's definitely something that I feel is taught to you. When I'm put in situations where I feel like my back is against the wall, I always try to analyze the situation and try to find ways of getting through the situation, figuring out the situation, and also ways to prevent that situation from happening again, and actively, pursuing an active role of fixing the problem and making it stop. So in conclusion, there's really three types of people and three different types of reactions. Generally, people fall into either the fight or flight, but the most dangerous one can be freeze. So it is an active role and something you do learn. So that's something you need to be always conscious about.
Okay, Jacob, I like the kind of opening statement that you had, although it wasn't very clearly connected to either the quote that you had or to the subject that you ended up talking about. It felt like it was a little disconnected to those things. When you gave us the quote, I could understand a little bit how the supporting points fit with it. I understood in the long run that your subject is going to be about the fight, flight, or freeze position. That's good. There's a good preview there, so I know where you're headed in the long run. On the individual points, you basically have an explanation for each of those points, but you don't have much of a story to tell. You do come back to the first point when you talk about yourself and how you were raised, but that feels like it was like, I got through my 3 points, and now, well, what else can I say? Oh, wait, I've got this experience. It would have been better to have it integrated into that first point, and then while you're thinking about that and talking about that, maybe one of the other examples would fit there. It doesn't have to be your own experience, whereas there been a flight experience, for instance, that you saw that you thought was either problematic or that it worked. for somebody. I think running away in some situations makes perfect sense. If somebody, you were not here yesterday for the active shooter drill, for instance, but that's one of the strategies. It's like run, hide, fight. Those sorts of things, depending on the condition that you're in. If you're not in the immediate vicinity, get away as fast as you can. That makes perfect sense. Sometimes flight is the right answer, but fighting might be necessary if you were trapped in that circumstance. So it just feels like you didn't have content for those points as much, and when you thought of the content, it was kind of an afterthought instead of being integrated in the speech. But it was well organized. The presentation, generally everything is really solid. I think that you're easy to hear. You've got pretty good variety in your voice. Maybe a couple of things could be emphasized a bit more, but that's a minor quibble. I thought that your facial expressions and head movement do indicate some ideas and emphasis, and they generally go along with the gestures that you have. So there wasn't anything that was particularly problematic. The summary is okay. I don't think the exit line is as good as your entrance line, but I didn't think the entrance line was particularly well connected to the topic that you had. So it felt a little, I don't want to say anticlimactic, but it's not as satisfying as it seemed like it was going. So good structure, good ideas to talk about. The presentation part is mostly solid. Just, it's, cleanup of details, that's all. All right, thank you.